Hi, I'm Jim Gehring from Brown Tool Auctions. What I have here is a selection of 5 very fancy exotic wood plow planes. Now, a plow plane is a plane that's intended to do one very specific task. It cuts a narrow groove at a set distance from the edge of a board. They're used by cabinet makers, but for some reason, and nobody really knows why, in the middle of the 19th century, makers of plow planes and the users decided that this was the plane that they were really going to lavish their decorative skills on. So they were often made out of very exotic woods, and they have fancy inlays and other decorations. Nobody really knows why the plow plane specifically was selected for this treatment, but that's what was done. And I have here 5 very nice plow planes following this tradition. This first one is an Ohio Tool Company center wheel plow. Now, a plow plane has to have a fence which runs along the side of the board to dictate how far into the board the plow or the groove is cut. And there are various mechanisms used to set the exact width of the distance of the fence from the body of the plane. The center wheel was one of the more elaborate ones, which was used by 2 companies in Ohio, Ohio Tool Company and Sandusky Tool Company. And the advantage being that by turning the center wheel, you moved both sides of the fence at the same time. What's special about this one is that it's solid ebony. And it's one of the only 2 solid ebony center wheel plows that's ever been found. I say solid ebony, it's a little bit of a misnomer. The body is ebony, the arms are ebony, the fence, but the bridge, this part here, where it adjusts, that's actually a very dark rosewood. It almost looks like it's part of the ebony, but there's a slightly different grain to it. So as I said, there's only 2 of these ever been located. They were obviously a very high-end item, and we're very excited to be able to have this one in the auction this fall. This next one is marked. All marked planes are generally signed by the maker or the seller on this end, which is called the toe. This one is marked by D.R. Barton. Now, Barton was a maker of edge tools. They didn't make wooden planes. So they probably bought this from one of the other makers, probably one of the makers. A lot of makers, in fact, in New York State, use prison labor out of Sing Sing and other state prisons in order to make these planes. This was probably bought by one of them, but it was sold by Barton, so it's marked by D.R. Barton on the toe. You can see this one is also ebony, a beautiful piece of ebony, the body, the fence, and the nuts. This part is called the arms, which is what adjusts the distance of the fence, are made of boxwood, which was a very hard wood that was used for that purpose because it was thought it would keep the threads from chipping. You notice that this fence also has got a strip of boxwood along the edge of it. This was the practice called boxing. And because boxwood was so hard, it was intended to stop the fence from wearing, even though ebony itself is pretty hard wood. This one is also an ivory tip plane. It's got 2 little ivory caps on the ends of the arms. This next plane is made by a company called Greenfield Tool Company from Connecticut, which was known for making very fancy and high-end planes. You notice it's got what are called sandwich nuts. This was very characteristic of Greenfield. That was one of their signatures. And it's 2 pieces of ivory with a rosewood in between. So that was, again, nothing but decoration. It's also ivory tipped. This one's actually got 4 ivory tips. Body looks to me like probably mahogany, which is another very exotic wood that was used to make these. So again, these were made by the Greenfield Tool Company and were very fancy. Greenfield, as I said, they were known for these sandwich nuts, but they also sometimes made solid ivory nuts. So here's another one. This one isn't ivory tipped, but you notice it's got actual nuts. Both the inner and outer nuts are turned out of solid ivory. So that was another very fancy flourish they put on them to make these tools particularly valuable. Actually, Greenfield Tool Company, in one of their catalogs, they claim to have listed a solid ivory plane. The body and fence were both solid ivory with gold nuts. Nobody's ever seen one of these, but if you ever do, drop whatever you're doing and call us immediately. This final one is made by a company called Union Factory. It was owned by a prominent tool-making company known as the Chapins. This was a guy named Herman Chapin. And what's unique about this one is it's got mechanism of locking the fence in place. This is called a bridle plow. This is shaped like a bridle. You've got this iron piece that fits down over the two arms and locks down. This was very common in England. It was very uncommon in the United States. You notice that unlike these others, the arms do not go all the way through. They terminate in the body of the plow itself and are locked in place. This is the only one of this particular configuration that's ever been seen is made by the Chapin Company. And it's thought it was probably a prototype. They were experimenting with it, seeing if they wanted to do this. So it is unique. And again, it looks like it's made out of mahogany with ebony arms. Looks like a boxwood fence. So it's a very fancy plow, which was never actually put into production. So as you can see, these plow planes would have been one of a carpenter's most prized possessions, and particularly these very fancy ones with all the ivory decoration and the exotic woods.